Hi, I'm Ruthie Bowles, and this is another episode of the Defiant Business Podcast, your Monday through Friday 10-minute shot of business knowledge. So, we're just going to go ahead and get into it. Today, we are going to talk about some serious marketing gaffes. Not necessarily because I enjoy picking apart people or things, but because there's always a lesson to be learned from the missteps of others. And if we don't take the opportunity, the time that we have to go back and look at these mistakes, then how can we learn from them? So this episode isn't meant to throw shade at any one particular company, but just to kind of take an opportunity to look at what happened, what might have caused it, and then just try to avoid that same or those same mistakes in our own marketing and advertising and any communications that we have with internal and external stakeholders. Nothing bad about that, right? So no shade meant, but these are the few companies that I picked in terms of who I was going to hold up as an example of what not to do. So before we get into these examples that I have, and I feel like they're really good ones, I wanted to talk about some of the reasons that mistakes like these occur. Because as a consumer, from the consumer side of things, when you see these things, and I know you've probably seen most of them, the ones that I'll describe, when you saw them, you were probably thinking, oh my goodness, that company is so big. How did they make that mistake? That's ridiculous. They make way too much money to make those sorts of mistakes. But there are a few key reasons why these mistakes might occur. So typically one of the reasons will be that it stems from the company trying to use or borrow a cause that they've never indicated any interest in, that doesn't line up with their target audience or their target customer demographic. So they're trying to borrow energy that's not theirs, and it's inauthentic, and that's why it doesn't work. You cannot borrow energy that's not yours to use. So one of the best examples is when a cause comes around or an issue happens and a company will do something like change its filter on Facebook or something. Some people find that really inauthentic, and there's a good reason for that. So it could also be that somebody in the creativity meeting, as these things are brainstormed, we're like, ooh, they'll throw up all these ideas, what's going to happen? Somebody didn't speak up. Right. So again, it's back to, hey, these companies make way too much money to make these sorts of mistakes. But why didn't somebody speak up? So this can tie back to company culture. If you have a company whose culture does not encourage speaking up, if you have someone in charge of marketing or in charge of that particular team who just basically has a chokehold on all the opinions, so like only my opinion's the good opinion and all of yours suck, then that's not going to encourage anyone to speak up. And so that ties really into company culture. And then the other one might be that a company doesn't have enough diversity in that department. And the examples that I show you, a lot of them relate to diversity in terms of different groups that they, caused an uproar with. And if there's somebody on that team who's like, hey, so that actually is not a good idea, let me explain why, then, so it could be that there's not enough diversity, or somebody's got a chokehold on all the opinions, right? They're the only one allowed to have good ideas. And then the last one usually just boils down to they didn't do research, which isn't a great, it's not an excuse. I'm not excusing anything that happened, but they didn't do the research that they needed to do. And that can start at the lowest level. Somebody has a good idea and then they present it to the upper echelons of a marketing department, and no one checks. Nobody does their research. No one in that entire chain, boom, it's bad. Okay, first one up. You guys knew this was coming. Kendall Jenner and the Pepsi ad. Why were people so mad? No matter what side of the argument you're on, or conversation, Pepsi offered a story that was with an oversimplistic solution to the situation. So basically, it's Kendall Jenner with a Pepsi, and she goes down and basically resolves the issue by giving a Pepsi to a police officer, and he's standing there with like a protester. And this ties back to some of the shootings and everything, in terms of Black people getting killed. by police officers. So that was an oversimplistic solution. Pepsi wanted to appear as a unifying product, but what they did was they oversimplified and totally made it seem like what was happening was just an easy thing to fix, and it wasn't. It's institutional, it's deep, and I think both sides can agree to that this stems from deeper issues and we have deeper problems. Pepsi's not going to fix it. So again, like anybody, who has like a differing opinion, kind of having that diversity, they could have easily raised their hands at the creativity meeting and said, this is a terrible idea, especially for Kendall Jenner to be the one to pass off the Pepsi, because in terms of deep issues, most people don't take her seriously. It's just a fact. So another one. This one goes back a bit further, DiGiorno's Why I Stayed campaign. So DiGiorno wanted their followers to use the hashtag Why I Stayed to talk about why they stayed with the brand and why they buy their pizzas and everything. Unfortunately, what it appears is that the DiGiorno marketing team didn't do enough research to figure out or find out that Why I Stayed is a hashtag that domestic abuse survivors typically use because they stayed for a particular reason. People ask that question, well, if your spouse is doing that, why do you stay? Well, that's the responding hashtag. So that appeared to be, just not very good research, because, you could have easily popped that into Twitter and been like, oh, what are people using this hashtag for? You can't assume that any idea you have for a hashtag is original. You have to research it. Another really bad one was Ford using bound and gagged women to, I think, show how much space their new hatchback had in the back. But it had 3 women bound and gagged in the trunk of this new Ford hatchback. And this was about the time that Harvey Weinstein was big in the news for not good things, and the Me Too movement was, taking off. And so, of course, people see this, print ad and they're appalled. It's offensive. And you're just like, again, why didn't somebody tell them that that was a terrible idea? Don't know, but it kind of goes back to some of those possibilities that I spoke to at the beginning of the episode. And of course, we know Ford, I'm sure, was not trying to advocate for violence against women. So you know that you're like, okay, we're pretty sure that that's not what's happening. But the thing is they put it out there, and it's offensive. It hurts people, and so you, as a company, again, like they're perceived as being too large to make these sorts of mistakes. And Dove had a short ad that had a Black woman turning into a white woman, and Dove's goal, based on their response to the outrage, because the ad was called racist, because it looked like, you were cleaning a Black woman into a white woman. They were just trying to show and convey that their product is for everyone. Diversity. Anybody can use our product. It's great for anyone's skin. But unfortunately, the ad heralded back to the advertising gimmick of cleaning a Black person into whiteness. And this is something that, we've seen with marketing companies into the, 1800s, 1900s, all the way, through, the last very many years. And it was that, you could take soap and clean a Black person so well. The soap was so great, it could clean a Black person into a white person. And obviously that's incredibly racist and very offensive. And this is what it reminded people of when they saw it. So Dove's intention and how they were perceived were obviously very different things. And so again, you just have to wonder, why didn't someone say that that was a terrible idea? So what we learn from these marketing missteps is that companies need to, I think, introduce some of their marketing concepts to focus groups before they release them. Encourage people on the marketing team to speak up. Make an effort to get a diversified group of people together to offer these opinions. Skill and knowledge notwithstanding, there's something to be said for personal life experience. And as companies try to touch more onto these issues that matter to us, or, take perspectives that will appeal to us as consumers, they also have to consider how they may turn us off as well. And that is something you should always focus on in your marketing, especially as you pull in popular culture and current events. All right. This has been an episode of the Defiant Business Podcast. We'll see you next time.